Welcome to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping Orange County. With your host, Don Camber.
Hello, live from the OC Talk Radio studios at UCI's BILY Applied Innovation Center. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Don Camber with another great guest impacting our community in a positive way. Today, I welcome BILY of San Clemente Parent-to-Parent Support Group Executive Director Gina SIsca-Hazlett. BILY stands for Because I Love You. Thank you, Gina, for being on Impact OC.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity to share about BILY. I appreciate it.
Gina, I understand BILY is a parent-to-parent solutions-oriented program and equips parents the tools needed to regain control of their home. Please explain the problems that need solving and how your organization helps.
We have parents attend BILY with a range of issues. They might have adolescent children who are being disrespectful and kind of creating chaos in the home, all the way to adult children who have drug addiction problems and everything in between. So we help parents make changes in themselves and the way they respond to their children, and the changes make a huge difference in the family. So our goal is for them to regain peace in their home.
How are you able to do that?
Well, we meet with parents weekly. It's a free parent support group, and the meetings are non-judgmental, confidential, safe, supportive place for parents to come. And we meet in small groups, up to 12 parents in a group and 2 leaders. And we talk with one family at a time. We speak with the leaders, initiate discussion with one family at a time, and we help them brainstorm different ways of responding to their children, or different ways of maybe improving their own self-care. We help them with resources, we are supportive, and we are very action-based. So parents go home with a specific plan, a specific goal for the week that they come up with. So every week the parents leave the meeting with hope because they have a plan, maybe examples of things they might be trying. It's different with every family.
Can you give us an example of an issue that a family needs to work on?
Yes. Families are there. Several of them have mental health problems. Their children have mental health or marijuana addiction, running away from school, disrespect in the home, isolation, all kinds of problems.
What is the most prominent one?
Well, marijuana use is very common. I feel like a lot of the parents who come, no matter what age their child is, one of the things they mention is marijuana use. So that's very common.
So tell us some of the advice that would be given to a family to deal with that.
So I have an example of a family that came a few years ago. It was a divorced couple, and their son was 14 years old. And when he turned about 13, things changed. He began isolating in his room. He was not going to school. He refused to speak to his dad. His relationships were changing. He was using marijuana. He was defiant, running away. His parents came to BILY very worried together as a divorced couple, which is amazing in itself. They were very worried and concerned. And after several weeks in BILY, they became more united. The parents worked together and became united in what their boundaries were in each of their separate homes. That way the boy couldn't manipulate, wasn't able to manipulate his parents and play them against one another. So that was one of the first things they worked on, is working together and being united in their plan and in their consequences. And so as far as marijuana, they talked to him about it. They, instead of shaming him and yelling at him and getting mad, they talked to him more about it, empathized with them, and they drug tested him. And so they set boundaries and made changes that way. And after several weeks of being in counseling, getting him help, they made the very difficult decision. They were still very worried about his health and well-being. They made the very difficult decision to have him go to a therapeutic boarding school out of state. And that was while the boy was there. Of course, he went against his will, but while he was there working on himself, the parents continued to come to Billy and work on themselves, work on the way they communicate to their son. And they were consistent and worked together that whole time. And that's what we talk about in Billy, is the parents looking in the mirror and changing what they're doing. Because if nothing changes in the parents' realm, nothing will change in the family at all. So these parents were an example of hardworking, committed parents who were taking the tough steps themselves. And when their son finished 9 months in that program, he came back to a Billy meeting. We had probably 30 parents there, and he shared how his life had changed, how grateful he was to his parents for attending Billy and for making the very, very extremely difficult decision to send him away. He appreciated it. He was so grateful, and he gave the other parents at Billy hope, because some of them were in the similar situations. So he then was clean of marijuana. Now that's an extreme case, but he now, this is about 4 years later, this young man has a beautiful future ahead of him. He has a wonderful relationship with his family. He's devoted to staying clean, and he attributes a lot of that to the changes his parents made with the help of Billy.
Was he able to explain why he did the marijuana?
He had self-confidence issues. His parents had divorced, so he was confused about whether they loved him, and he started using marijuana when he was with his friends, when they were skateboarding and doing all that. He tried it, and it made him feel more relaxed and less stressed, so he went with it, and it progressed. And he wasn't able to stop on his own. He shared that, so he was, put in a position where he had to be sober, and that got his mind clear to where he could kind of come up with a new plan for himself, because he knew what he was doing wasn't working well.
So explain the meetings and how they're conducted.
The meetings are, I mentioned, safe, non-judgmental, confidential, supportive. And the leaders are parents helping parents. So the leaders are all there because they've had some experience themselves. We're not there as professionals, but we're there as parents. We never tell the parents what to do. We brainstorm with the parents, and we meet them where they are. So, if an idea is thrown out to them and they say, oh, there's no way I could do that, then we say, okay, let's throw that out, and let's talk about what is your goal. What are your house boundaries? What do you feel comfortable with? And we focus then not on fixing the kid, which a lot of parents come and they've been cleaning up their kids' messes, or, making excuses for their children or whatever it is. But now we want them to look in the mirror and look at themselves and say, what can I do differently? What am I doing? Am I nagging my child and reminding him and shaming them? If I'm doing that as a parent, that's something that I can change. It's hard to make changes in ourselves, but the changes that the parents make, for example, showing empathy with their boundaries. Oh, bummer, you got in trouble at school. How are you going to handle that? I'm here for you, I love you, instead of yelling at them and, putting on giving them a tough, hard consequence. Maybe it's empathizing and allowing them to deal with the natural consequences. It's a whole different way of thinking for some of the parents. So the leaders, like I said, talk to one family at a time in the meetings. They're very productive. So we talk a little bit when the parents first come on the past, like kind of what's led up to this, and then we focus on this week. What's happened this week? What did you try? What worked? What didn't work? And let's move forward. And what's your goal for this week? So they leave with a specific goal. It could be anywhere from ordering a book that we recommend, a Love and Logic book if it's a young child, about boundaries and follow through. That could be their goal for the week. So, but the parent leaves with hope because they have just that goal. That's progress. Or it could be this week, instead of engaging with your child when it's a very negative communication, have a phrase that you write on your hand. Even it reminds you every time your child starts pushing your buttons, you say, I'm sorry you feel that way, I love you, and then walk away, instead of, feeding into the unhealthy conversation. It changes the whole dynamic, just something so small like that.
What are the demographics of the parents and the children of the parents, would you say?
The demographics are really across the board. The meeting is free and it's accessible to all parents and guardians. We have parents, young parents, and we have elderly grandparents who attend BILY. It's accessible to all of them, so really the demographics are all over the county.
And we're saying BILY. Please explain how you came up with that.
That was, BILY was launched by Dennis Poncher in the 1980s. He still runs meetings in LA. So we use his program, and BILY, he wanted the title to be Because I Love You, because that's our whole thing, right? We take these difficult steps, we set boundaries, we allow consequences, all because we love our children. Sometimes they don't take it that way, but it is all out of love. The steps we have to take are really hard. If you love your child that much, you'll take the difficult steps. So he came up with that.
What messages are difficult for parents to accept in order to deal with their children?
Oh my gosh, the messages can be so difficult. We had another example of parents who had a young adult daughter who was independent. She was in her 30s. She had been struggling with alcohol addiction and eating disorder for years. And she was financially and living independently, but her parents came because they were very confused about what their role was with this daughter. They had gone to other programs and nothing was fitting really with how they felt. They were very enmeshed with their daughter. They were kind of on the emotional roller coaster with her. It was very hard for them to realize that they needed to get off the roller coaster and not ride the ups and downs with their daughter. And it was hard for them to look in the mirror and realize that their relationship wasn't healthy. They thought they were helping her, but they were, quote, loving her to death, or they were doing too much, for her emotionally. So they took the very difficult steps in listening, hearing, receiving the feedback. And like I said, we don't tell them what to do, but they chose that. And they got off the roller coaster and started, instead of shaming her or lecturing her, they began showing empathy and boundaries. If she called them and she was in chaos, they would say, we love you and we're here for you when you're ready to get help, rather than jumping into the chaos with her. So for them, it was very hard to hear that what they always thought they were doing was loving her was not healthy. It wasn't healthy for her, and it wasn't healthy for them. This young woman is now in her older 30s, upper 30s, and her parents, after they attended for several weeks, she did reach out to them and she wanted help after years. And she got help, and she's been sober for 5 years. And she came back to BILY one evening and helped me lead a meeting, and she shared with the parents there that her life had changed drastically because her parents were doing the hard work and changing their boundaries and working on themselves. And she said the impact on her was so great and life-changing. She is healthy and has been healthy for that long and has a much healthier relationship with her parents. So
I realize it's a parent group, but do you ever meet with the children?
we don't meet with the children often, but as I just described, those are 2 children that have come back and shared, and we have done that several times where they will come back and share with us. So that's the only time we have interactions with the kids.
But are you able to get feedback from the children at some point to understand, while the parents are undergoing change of themselves, the children are receiving this information from their parents because they're seeing a change in their parents? I'd love to know what's it like from the child's point of view.
The children that we have talked to, that's a good idea. We should do it. We send an evaluation to the parents after 6 weeks of attending BILY to see their progress, so they can see their own progress. But that would be interesting to have the children fill one of those out too. But the feedback we've gotten from the children we have spoken to is so positive. Yeah. They say that the steps, the difficult, brutal steps, hard steps that their parents have taken in some cases have saved their lives. And even though the children didn't like the steps, their parents, the tough boundaries, maybe the parents had to take their car away, or they lost access because they were drinking or whatever it is. The children that I've talked to said they knew their parents were doing it for the right reasons, even though they were not happy about it, but they always knew deep inside it was for their own, health and well-being.
Well, BILY's has 10 principles. Can you go over them?
Sure. The 10 principles are: I will be number one. I will take care of myself first. So this is what I mentioned, how we focus on the parents. And self-care is so important. And it's kind of goes against the grain. When you're having a problem with your child, you think you should be focusing all on them. But really, if we take care of ourselves, then we're healthier and we're role modeling, and in every way it's benefits everyone. So that's the first one. I will be number one. The second one is I will no longer feel guilty. A lot of parents come and the one family I mentioned, the parents were divorced, so they may have felt guilty about that, so they're afraid to take steps that need to be taken. So that's the second one. Third is I will not take ownership or share in my child's crisis. When I mentioned that kind of too, when a child makes a mistake or a poor choice, allowing them, if it's safe and not life-threatening, to deal with their own consequences. That way they learn and grow, and the parents aren't jumping in and taking care of everything for them. The fourth one is I will learn to let go. So it's kind of similar, but I will hold my child accountable for their choices and allow them to learn from the consequences. The fifth one is I will make the rules. So especially if the child is living in your home, we encourage parents to have expectations in their home, boundaries. Maybe it's no drugs, it's a curfew, chores, whatever they decide. But so that's the fifth one. I will make the rules, and I will follow through, which is a hard one. And I will keep the lines of communication open. I will avail my family of resources and materials. I will work towards a more realistic family life, and I will be active in a parent support group.
How can people get in touch with you?
Our email address is BILY, BILY, San Clemente @gmail.com. The website is BILYSC.com.
Thank you, BILY of San Clemente, Parent-to-Parent Support Group Executive Director Gina SIsca-Hazlett, for being on Impact OC. And I thank everyone for tuning in. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Dawn Camber. Have an impactful day.
You've been listening to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping our community. Right here on Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio.